In less than 7 minutes, I'm about to prove that if you're a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, then you'll love Kagurabachi as well. For a start, both JJK and Kagurabachi are fast-paced series that revolve around sorcerers in Japan. We can all agree that what made JJK fun is that it had real stakes, a great power system, crazy fights, and pretty interesting lore. And after reading Kagurabachi, this series is a contender to be the next Jujutsu Kaisen. When I say that, I don't mean that it's a copy, because the actual plots are incredibly different, but what I mean is that when JJK ends, this series has the potential to be #1. Without getting into spoilers, Kagurabachi starts off as a story about revenge, but rapidly turns into a conspiracy involving sorcerers, the mafia, and the powerful clans. The main character of this series is Chihiro, whose dad gets assassinated in the early chapters. Chihiro's dad was a famous sword maker called Kunishige Rokuhira and was known by everyone as the hero who saved Japan. For context, in this universe, Japan is a katana society, meaning that swords are the main weapons people use. 19 years earlier, Japan was at war with another country, and despite having sorcerers, they were still getting destroyed. Kunishige is the one who turned this around, as he invented 6 weapons known as the enchanted blades. Each of these blades had 3 unique powers and surpassed anything seen from normal sorcery. In theory, certain blades had the potential to warp reality, bring back the dead, or massacre entire armies, and Japan used them to win the war. The exact details of how they won were kept a secret by the government, but when everything was over, Kunishige was hailed as a hero. The swordmaker then took the blades back into his possession, and for the next 15 years kept them hidden in a secret location. During that time, he and Chihiro lived a pretty peaceful life as he started to train his son to become a swordsmith as well. However, in the early chapters, their house got attacked by 3 sorcerers who killed Kunishige and stole all 6 of the enchanted blades. These sorcerers all belonged to a gang called the Hishaku, and you'd think that with all of the blades, they'd now be able to take over Japan. The problem for the Hishaku is that Kunishige created a system to prevent the swords being used by just anyone. Without getting into the details, all we need to say is that for now, the swords can only be wielded by the fighters who had them during the war, and if the Hishaku want to change that, then they need to kill the original users. In chapter 1, we then flash forward by over 3 years since the murder, and in that time Chihiro was now completely different. Fueled by his hatred for the Hishaku, his new purpose in life was to retrieve the stolen blades and to avenge his dad's death. After all, Kunishige's belief was that swords should be used to fight against evil, so naturally he'd never want the Hishaku to have them. The first chapter follows an 18-year-old Chihiro as he viciously cuts down a gang with ties to the evil sorcerers. Despite being outnumbered, he massacres them pretty easily, and that's because he has the 7th enchanted blade. This secret weapon was called the Enten and was the only enchanted blade created after the war. As a quick summary, it has the power to copy someone else's sorcery, at least for a moment, as well as enhancing physical stats and performing deadly long-range slashes. That being said, because Chihiro was a sword maker rather than an actual swordsman, his skill with Enten is nothing compared to previous enchanted blade users. That's why, on his quest for revenge, he often gets help from his dad's old friends, including Shiba, who's one of the best sorcerers in the country. Thematically, this series does fill the void that JJK left behind, because not only does it have the explosive fights, but it also has a divided society of sorcerers. This is because in Kagurabachi, not every sorcerer thinks the same way when it comes to the enchanted blades. For example, some people want them to be destroyed, while others want the government to use them. On top of that, it doesn't shy away from how brutal this world is, and like JJK, it has a nice variety of characters. One of those characters is Sojo, who's a villain that worships Chihiro's dad. Sojo is the first villain who we see using an enchanted blade, and is basically a superfan who's read every book about Kunishige. From reading that material, he concluded that these weapons of mass destruction have only one purpose, and that purpose is to massacre. After all, they are basically nukes, and this tweet sums it up pretty well. It says, "Imagine Oppenheimer had a son that wanted to disarm every nuke in the world, but he kept getting jumped by guys who were in love with his dad's work." That's basically Kagurabachi. The fights between Chihiro and the other enchanted blade users, they're all deeply personal conflicts, since everyone either knew his dad personally or has an opinion of his legacy, and nearly all of them disagree with Chihiro's goals. I'd argue this is one thing Kagurabachi does better than JJK, given that, as much as I love Sukuna and Kenjaku, they were literally just doing evil things for entertainment or just out of curiosity, and, while that's fine, it's also, it could go a bit deeper than that. The villains of Kagurabachi usually have very strong feelings when it comes to Kunishige's legacy, and, they each have their own viewpoints about how his creation should be used to change the world. In fact, one of the most fun aspects of the series is actually the reveal of each new enchanted blade, because like I alluded to before, their powers are all radically different. Technically speaking, their powers also have no ceiling, as in they can get infinitely stronger depending on the imagination of the user and his connection to the sword. If we compared it to JJK, it'd be like if two characters had the same technique and, similar curse energy reserves, but only one of them had the imagination to use it to its full potential. Anyway, some final things to say about why you'll love this series is that the lore is amazing. Whether it's about the war, whether it's about sword techniques, the enchanted blade users, the sorcerer clans, or even the government, the world has been really fleshed out well in such a short space of time. By the way, the artwork in this series is absolutely insane, so even if you don't vibe with the plot, I'd just recommend reading it just to appreciate the greatness that is being drawn on a weekly basis. For me personally, I initially began reading this back in 2023 when all those memes were coming out, but for some reason, I can't remember exactly, but I stopped after a couple months. It's not because I didn't like it or anything, I think it's probably that I wanted it to build up, and yeah, a few weeks ago I was able to binge through 100+ chapters. Anyhow, let me know in the comments down below, have you read any of this series before? Or if you haven't read it, then has this video convinced you to at least give it a try? I'm hoping the answer is yes, otherwise I may need to find a new job. So yeah, please check it out if you think it sounds interesting. As always, thank you for watching, and until the next one, peace out.